Okay, I'm going to talk about a little secret advantage that basically no Fuji shooter knows about. There's probably like 10 of them out there that know this fact. Flash duration. I'm going to make another video after this since some people have been asking questions about studio strobes. And it's about T5 and T1. Ultimately, just talk about T1 times. And in short summation, we're talking about how a flash or studio strobe drags its butt once you fire that speed light or that studio strobe. Now when it comes to a leaf shutter, even a little built-in pop-up flash, which I've been asked this question, like in broad daylight, how effective is this dinky little flash in broad daylight? Well, for shooting, let's say a person or two or three, and you're talking about 8 feet effectively if you like have them backlit. But I'm not talking about the light on this. I'm talking about T1 times. And check the video after this for the detailed specifics on this. It works out that most speed lights have a T1 time, meaning full blast power. Doesn't matter who makes the speed light, Nikon, Yongnuo, they all work out such that their capacitors charge and discharge, and they actually dissipate to full blast power at basically right around 1,000th of a second. While the Fuji X100T will sync, do genuine high-speed sync at absolutely any shutter speed all the way up to 1/4000th of a second. It is the case with that speed light that you'll take a shot at, say, 1/1000th and change nothing and then dial it up to 1/4000th and you'd be like, well, nothing has changed on the power settings, and the reason for that is the 1/1000th of a second time that the discharge cycle actually works, like on a full blast discharge from a speed light, is that at 1/4000th of a second you're only sampling a section of that speed light as it's dragging its butt on releasing that charge. 1/1000th of a period of time is quite large, and you decide you're going to bump up your shutter speed from 1/1000th of a second to 1/4000th of a second. So you got a cow of light here, but you have a needle of time on your shutter speed. Okay, well that's fine. But now let's talk about something else, studio strobes. So now we know that, I'm trying to keep this really simple, that you got a cow of light on your speed light, doesn't matter what speed light it is basically, that you really cannot go, and this is why you'll read that the high-speed sync for a speed light is 1/1000th of a second, even though it will sync at any shutter speed with the leaf shutter on the Fuji X100T. But the flash duration is such that anything above 1/1000th you're not using, the full blast of light, so you're not dropping any more light on your picture actually. So that is the reason why they say 1/1000th of a second. Now let's enter into the magic, which is the title of this video. The magic of this with a special type of flash control. Right behind me I have the Einstein unit. Now there's a special type of studio strobe that has an advantage, the IGBT control, and the way it works in simple, it is actually dissipating a charge a lot faster. So when at half power in action mode, it's occurring at 1/2000th of a second. That means at 320 watt seconds, the Einstein back there is Speedy Gonzales and dropping a serious amount of light so that I can go above 1/1000th of a second with the Fuji X100T. Now there are actually quite a few people, it's like, well, who's using this for portraiture? A lot, because the advantages of being able to crush the ambient light and compress your dynamic range between your ambient illumination and your fill light, your key lights on your subject is extremely important. What that also does is it gives you a really rich color saturation to your skies, and it unshackles you from the bonds of only having to be able to shoot early morning, late evening. It's like, I'm going to go out and take some awesome shots at 3 o'clock. And any other ignorant photographer is going to go, yeah, you're full of crap. But the advantage with these is that the equivalent of this, which is 640 watt seconds maximum output, even at half power, what you have relative to a normal camera, which is pulsing light, at high-speed sync, and this is true high-speed sync, you have a actual equivalent of this Einstein at half power being the equivalent of, the relative equivalent of, 2,000 watt seconds. That means that in broad, burn your eyeballs out 2 o'clock light at the, in the middle of the Mojave Desert, that I can drop someone or a group of people or whatever you want, or just a building, for example. Say I got a backlit building. Part of the building is, way out of reach. That means I can drop hardcore, serious amounts of power at 1/2000th of a second. And if I drop it down to, say, actually I can drop it at to about 250 watt seconds of power, which is a lot, at 1/4000th of a second. So in action mode on the Einstein, I have 1/4000. So right now my cow of light and my needle of time, they're both exactly the exact same. There's no cow of light and needle of time when you're dealing with this sort of IGBT flash control. And go on to the next video, and I'll go into a little bit more specifics on that. And this is the importance of T1 time, but when we're talking about the magic of the leaf shutter on the Fuji X100T, where it will sync at any shutter speed, well, that's fine. And this is what you'll read on the Fuji X100T. They can only sync at 1/1000th of a second with speedlights. That's correct, because speedlights have this amount of time at 1/1000th of a second. So you can't take your shutter any faster than that, otherwise you're just not using it. Can't stick a cow through a needle of time, a needle of shutter speed time. But with a studio strobe like this, combined with the Fuji X100T, and you'll actually see some hardcore professionals actually shoot that way. It's like, well, why is somebody using a professional studio strobe with a unit like this? And you'll understand why, because with a single unit like this and a softbox, actually I'd be using a softbox, not the octabox. I could step back, say 50 feet. I could illuminate a back illuminated building, say the sun is behind the building. I could illuminate the whole side of this big ass building at 250 watt seconds of power at 1/4000th of a second if I want, and illuminate the whole, because I have the equivalent, the relative equivalent of 2,000 watt seconds of power. That means you are dropping an atom bomb of light at 1/4000th of a second using the Fuji X100T with the specific type of light, the IGBT controlled light that is dropping out of the Pulsey Buff studio strobes, because it's not dragging its butt on releasing a light. The actual curvature, and check the next video, the curvature of the dissipation of light is very slow as you drop down in power. Like, say you starts immediately at 1/2 power, anything less than that, it drags its butt, which means that you don't have the ability to use faster shutter speeds, and this causes an issue with other things, but that's a point for the other video discussion. So I thought I'd mention that to you because I know there's no other video on YouTube about this fact. So this, the Fuji X100T, combined with ultra fast ability to drop some serious light within a very brief period of time, gives you a magic ability with the Fuji X100T to do some amazing crap that you would think was just not possible unless you had some, like, a dozen super powerful monoblock lights. It's like, no, you can actually illuminate one big ass damn building with one of these lights because it's dropping hardcore light in a brief period of time. So some people will find that interesting. Most people might be scratching their heads, but it's actually important, and it gives you an ability to do something that you can't do with anything else. Okay? Bye.